Well, it took him 125 episodes, but Nathan Williamson finally has a decent microphone for the Dropped Kickoff podcast. Is this what professionalism looks like, Nathan? I think it is. Mate, how are we doing?
Man, they're always doing good after a win. Like, in 3 in a row, like, I had to. You had to splurge out. We're gonna get to 5 and 6 in a row, and then we're gonna have all the HD cameras, actual like professional shooting like the Coco Boys had. Like, it comes with a winning territory. You just gotta sort of pod like winners.
Mate, the things that can happen when the marketing pigeon actually allocates some budget, I'll tell you what, it is you get a microphone for a podcast that isn't even on Rugby Australia's platforms. Take it and we roll with it. It's the truth. But
this is our hard-earned advertising money at work here. Because that's definitely where it goes, and not to the bar.
Definitely not to the bar. It is officially true, and our Twitter feed does not suggest in any way, shape, or form that it does go to the bar. But it is Drop Kickoff time. You know who I am. Yeah, no, not at all. You know who I am. You know who Nathan is. It's just us two this week, though we may have another surprise appearance once again from Andy Handyside. He has promised that he will try and come on and make an appearance because he has a Reds performance to gush about and a Wallabies performance filled with Reds to gush about. You can't keep the man from Queensland away for too long. But we're here to dissect a very important win for the Wallabies. They won 40-29 over Georgia in Sydney over the weekend. Joe Schmidt, 3 from 3 to start his era as Wallabies coach. And now after this, we will have a few weeks off before the Springboks roll into town in Brisbane for the Rugby Championship. But we kick off with our left field question, as always. This is how we roll. You know it, we know it, this is how it goes. And there's one particular thing that really stuck out to us in this weekend just gone. It is about the whole situation regarding emerging nations playing top-tier nations, which the World Rugby has been trialling. Of course, I'm talking about New Zealand playing Fiji. I'm talking about, of course, Australia playing Georgia. Portugal playing South Africa, and other equivalent games. Of course, Uruguay again against Argentina as well. So our left field question, we have some opinions on it. We'll dive into it after this left field question. But Nathan, who is the one second-tier nation you'd like the Wallabies to play?
Does Wales now count as a second-tier nation? I like playing them.
Ooh! Oh, shit.
Kidding. Of course I'm kidding. All right. In all seriousness, they played South Africa on the weekend, but I'll go Portugal. Like, yes, they got smacked around, but it's a fun game. I think there'll be a lot of sort of Portuguese people in Australia that will get behind it as well. So you get a bit of a fun mix in the crowd, get an exciting game, and a game where there's going to be a lot of points and, more importantly, an Australian win.
Os Lobos. No, well, I'll tell you what, they were really fun. And seeing them score the first try of that match in Bloemfontein was something like that's the dream. That's the thing that dreams are made of if you are a Portuguese rugby fan, to see to see Portugal actually leading the box for about 20 minutes of that match before the box kicked on and just did what Springboks do at the moment. That's a great answer. I would really like to see, in all honesty, personally, I have a real soft spot for a lot of the Pacific Island nations. I think we should actually have like a mandatory 2 or 3 match fixture against Pacific Island nations, like your Tonga, like your Samoas, like your Fiji. Similar to what the Wallaroos have got going on with Fiji doing that yearly fixture at present. We should make that mandatory. I reckon either it be the actual Wallabies or like we had a few years ago with Australia A playing in the Pacific Nations Cup. Bring that back. I thought that idea was really, really cool. So, look, call it close to home, call it boring. The other option, of course, is Georgia, and I got that on the weekend, and what a match we were treated to. But do we think it worked? Do we think, obviously, when you are trialing having more tier 2 nations or second tier emerging nations, I prefer the term emerging nations because tier 2 implies just, you're not as good in that. And I think it's clearly we're on the journey of everyone's trying to get up to the level of being all competitive rugby nations, and which makes international rugby so much fun. We knew some teams were going to get smacked around. Some teams did get smacked around. Some teams put up a good fight. how do we feel about this? A 2-match series, like your Ireland's and England, Ireland, South Africa's, England's, All Blacks, Wales, Australia, and then a match like this. Do we like it?
I don't like the format of it, but I like the concept in the sense of I think those July series should have been your 3 tests, so you actually have a winner rather than what we've got, which was I think 3 drawn series and a 2-0. Like,
yeah, only Australia and New Zealand won their series. Yeah,
2 and 2. So all of a sudden you're sort of left with that South Africa Ireland game, just wanting more. And that sort of distracts from the fact, or it's distracted from the week of, hey, how cool is it that Portugal get to play South Africa? It was a lot of, why are they playing it? We want Ireland to play them for a third time. So I think if you can find a way to still have your 3 tests, then maybe do it in August or, just before the Rugby Championship and everything else starts. I know that might be a bit hard for, even like late June, because I know that might be hard with the Europeans. Just trade those ones to warm up into those big fixtures. Keep the exposure going because, you saw it creates some great rugby. Like you said, South Africa, Portugal, yes. South Africa down to 14 and still pumped them, but it's a fun game. Italy sort of taking on Japan was a fun little matchup of teams on that sort of border of tier 1 and tier 2. And we know that went for Eddie Jones in Japan. Like New Zealand and Fiji, going to America, nearly selling out the place there. Great sort of atmosphere around that. Like it's shown that there is an appetite there. People will actually get behind it more than I think probably some of us realised. So absolutely, just keep it going heading forward.
Yeah, I think an additional test match in the calendar year works. I mean, there is a gap or a period of time between that and six and the start of whether it be a Six Nations or a Rugby Championship. There is time in the calendar to throw that in, and even if that doesn't work, even like an Australia A sort of situation as well can also be on the table. The Australia A program's coming back later this year to play England A as well. So there's plenty going on, and there's plenty ways you can make it work. But they should do more fixtures like this. While maybe there may be some small adjustments to how it is looking right now. As a concept, run with it. It's fun because you get some fantastic matches and some fantastic moments. And one fantastic moment, let's get straight to it, is this Wallabies match against Georgia, played at the SFS in Sydney. 2 wins on the trot in Sydney. What the hell is going on, Nathan? Suddenly it's... It is. 26,000 in attendance. James Dolman as the referee, and Australia ran out 40-29 winners in a really entertaining clash. Like, this was a really fun clash. I was completely nervous. I think a lot of the rugby fans, the real rugby, what do we call them? The true rugby fan, quote unquote.
For the rugby sickos. The rugby
sickos. Thank you, Mr. Hartman, for that one. The true rugby sickos were shitting bricks. In all honesty, because we all knew how good Georgia was. When we saw that squad drop with the 10 changes and the many inclusions, I was going, uh-oh, because I know that this is a good Georgian side. And lo and behold, they showed up and played some fantastic rugby. And even though they may have gone down in the loss, I think they proved probably more than enough that they are ready for regular tier 1 international competition. Nathan, thoughts, feelings, opinions about this match?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those matches, and I can't take credit for this analogy because it's the perfect one. So I'll shout out Jonathan Drennan from the SMH for this. Georgia were essentially like that, that boxer with 0 height but is 22-0. Like a guy that you get fed to 1 or 2 before you sort of hit a title, and you go, he's got no name. It's not going to raise your popularity stocks, but it's a serious challenger and one for South Africa, the ideal sort of test of styles and what we're going to expect at maybe just slightly lower level. So I think what sort of impressed me was just how calm they were. They, built a lead out, obviously copped the red card and was still able to strike. Copped 2, let's face it, pretty unlucky bounces of the ball. Then that's really one you can't replicate, while the other one just might be a little bit of a case of not understanding how close the trailing attacker was in terms of where the ball was. But like their ability to stay calm, turn momentum, eventually get the try and get the results, and all through sort of a dominant, powerful forward pack. Like that's what impressed me the most. Like these are top 4 or at least first and second tier French forwards. Like they are playing against quality opposition time in and time out, and they matched them, and if not dominated them at stages. So I think that's what was really good about the performance from my perspective.
It was a niggly sort of game in that regard. It was very much a game of there were several moments where it did feel like the Wallabies were going to run away with it. But it was a credit to Georgia to find a way to, whether it be through a kind of, I don't want to say moments necessarily of self-sabotage, but moments where you have that critical moment like the yellow card that became the red card for Balipo Daugunu, or moments of key execution, like I don't know how many tries the Wallabies missed out on. Something upwards of 4 or 5, where they had the 2 turnovers over the try line. They had the 1 disallowed try. A couple of kicks to the corner that went dead from both Dono and Noah, which is that's a killer.
I hate it.
Those ones,
I hate it.
Yeah.
I've
those
said
ones,
it time and time again. I hate it. Just fine touch.
Yeah, it's not hard. You are a professional athlete. That is the level of mistake that is not acceptable. But we'll get to that a little bit later. But there were the Wallabies left at least a good 20 points out, at least 20 to 30 points out there on the field in terms of their attack. Their attack, I thought, was really, really good. Probably the best it's looked so far. That's not a disrespect to Wales, but I think just in terms of sheer actual attack, that first try to Paisami is probably the most dangerous the Wallabies have looked in years. And it occurred to me that they had really done their homework on Georgia, and this was how they were going to beat them. Speed, physicality, matching them up physically, but using that extra level of speed and tactical awareness to force them to make a mistake, be drawn out of line. How many times did the Georgians get caught offside? How many times? Just because they were trying to shut that speed and extra play and that extra pop off the attacking player so much. That was really entertaining attacking rugby that I thought was really, really good. And, not just the backs. I thought our loose forwards, that's it. I think we have our winners now. I'm sorry no disrespect to Liam Wright, but McWright, Wilson, Valentini. I think I think that's it. That they've got it. They've got it locked in.
I would almost like Liam Wright, given he was captain and the way he sort of played in that first test, you could see him coming back in. But I think what impressed me most about that sort of loose forward group is the best way to describe Rob Valentini and Harry Wilson is almost that, for anyone around sort of English football, was that Gerrard and Lampard sort of combination. Just two people who played very similar but just didn't work in the same team. You look at how Harry Wilson played, and it was a completely different style of play. It was he was hitting rucks. He was their secondary line-out option, where he was secure. His more work was solid, and ultimately, when you he was able to sort of clean up those core skills when an opportunity presented, like when Fraser Wright makes the break. He's your first man there, being able to use his ball skills, use his pace just to kind of get on top of it. So you then combine him with the way Fraser was over a ball. Again, incredible ball hawk on his own line, and maybe the best positional play in world rugby right now. Just the way he pops up in the right area and spots a gap, along with Valentini just bashed people all day. It's just a perfect trio.
It's beautiful. Honestly, so many people, maybe I've been surrounded by too many raw commenters who've often thought that you must swap out, Valentini is naturally the best at number 8. You should swap out Wilson for Valentini if you're going to do that. This match proved to me more than anything else, they are complementary together. They were phenomenal.
But they haven't been in the past. That's the thing.
No, they haven't.
I was in that camp that you couldn't. But the fact that I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think he would even admit it. But I think at some stage the penny must have dropped for Harry that if he's going to play in the Wallabies, compete with John Eels medalists like Rob Valentini, he has to play a different style of football. And it's only a slight difference. It's not much to it. And he admitted that he was, he credited, I think, Zane Hilton for the work he did on his core skills around that set piece. And you only have to look at the Reds Wales game to show just how great Zane is around preparing a side for that. And you sort of saw just the difference that made. And it now looks like a sort of a combination that can really work. And something which, again, can be a real point of difference for Wallaby sides heading into this Rugby Championship. It's just how athletic, explosive that sort of back row can be.
Yeah. Another side of the Wallabies that I think worked really, really well, the centres. I am seriously of the opinion that the combination of Hunter Paisami and Lenny Kitau is the most underappreciated partnership that was discovered during the Dave Rennie era.
Great.
And I thought they were phenomenal today. It's because you have that explosivity and the ability to bust tackles that someone, say, Karevi has. And while Karevi has improved on his game awareness, I just don't think he's as good as an aware player as someone like Paisami or Ikitau. Potentially, you could even interchange them a little bit. I think Ikitau's a more natural 13, whereas Paisami can be more effectively utilized at 12. But I love these two players together. They complement each other brilliantly, and that back line looked a lot more dangerous. There was a lot more of speed advance. No disrespect to Fluke either. If you're going to have a player coming off, we're in a situation where we really want to have a lot more depth in all of these positions, and you want 5 people knocking on the door if one of these players go down. And Fluke has already shown in that Wales series that he's very capable of matching up at this level. I just really like these two together. I really do.
It flows. It flows so well. And like people talk about, what's the Australian style rugby? To me, this is it. You fast ball, you get it out wide. I think I love the little sort of, and I copped a bit of sort of criticism late in the second half, but the sort of the play out the back to open the numbers up and use your speed, like Joe Schmidt, but it makes it sort of Australian rugby work. And you watch that first 20 minutes back, just how many times like there are people charging into rucks, just clearing it out so there's quick ball. You had Paisami and Ikitau almost being those links, with either taking the ball to the line and quickly passing off, or beating their first man. At least, even if not beating the first man, making sure they're not taking in dominant tackles, so you can then launch into the next play. Like the combination worked outstandingly. And I guess while I was sort of talking about players that sort of impress, you look at the center combination. I quite like the second row combination as well. Like
Frost was good.
He was
good.
great.
Blythe was good. I think Blythe had. I don't think Blythe got as much of an opportunity to impress. I mean, he came off pretty early in the second half, but when he did inject himself, he was particularly effective.
Yeah. Just like Georgia came out and said, "We're going to attack your rolling maul. Stop it," and they just went, "Okay," and stopped it.
Yeah, rolling maul was a lot better.
So much better.
Better.
Credit those second rowers and your works or your props as well. Isaac Kailera and Alatoa, both great.
Yeah, I will say the forward pack did surprise me. The front, the top 5, the front row and the second row. I was very worried about how much they chopped and changed going into that. Even though there were, still a lot of Brumbies together. It was just essentially a whole bunch of Reds and Brumbies effectively all back together into that front row. So they still had played a lot of time together, but they did well because that's a really solid Georgian scrum and set piece. And they not only matched them, were able to keep some level of parity to make it a competition at scrum time, which is where I was particularly worried, but they dominated them in the line out and in general play, which was the key difference. No mean feat to do.
Yeah, great sort of test for South Africa, isn't it?
It is. And I think this leads us nicely on to the key question of what needs work from here, because I think while there are a lot of positives to pull from this game, there are also a lot of questions. South Africa, with all due respect to Georgia, they're another level. And there are still plenty of questions that need to be asked about particular positions. Yep, Nathan has got it. He's got his hands full up. It is number 10 time. I first of all want to say, before we get to the elephant in the room and talk about the position of 10, while the Wallabies attack was really, really good, we alluded to it earlier, they left at least 4 or 5 tries out there. We could be having a different conversation about this game, Nathan. The Wallabies could have won by 60-29 or 60-30 or something like that, and we'd be having a different discussion here, because I would argue that Georgia are probably a stronger side than, say, the likes of your Portugal, who the Springboks dispatched by 6 60-something points, with 14 players. So like the amount of small execution errors at critical moments from the attack side of things was not up to standard. How 2 tries left, lost over the line. Yes, there's that one disallowed try. You can't do anything like that. But those 2 kicks to the corner, one by Dono and one by Noel Alessio, that's not acceptable. You cannot get away with that, with making an error like that. You have to kick to the corner. You have to get it out, and you have to make sure that that you are in a position to get them all. Like, there are still a lot of questions. I reckon the attack could have been better, but execution at those critical moments.
Again, and like, I think Dungunu's try against Wales sort of maybe papered up a bit of a crack there of just how we've sort of gone about finding touch. Ultimately, that is a kick that wasn't deep enough into the sort of stands and just presented an opportunity that somehow went our way. But just on that as well, I'd argue the discipline as well probably wasn't up to scratch. Another red card, another time where you sort of having to fight down men, and where we essentially spent ourselves clock watching, just hoping for the best. So yeah, they're 2 absolute work-ons. I think defensively we missed some pretty easy tackles late in the game, but again, not minor things, but in the grand scheme, it's definitely a much better. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to think of it. It's a better performance than we sort of have alluded to in the last couple of minutes in terms of like the positives outweigh the negatives. That's the word I'm looking for. I can 100% say that. Yeah. But yes, there is still that question around 10 that we have to discuss.
Yeah. Before we do that, I do want to highlight the point you mentioned earlier about the defense. I do think that I feel like it's a bit of a disrespect to Georgia, because the Georgians, they produced some quality tries and just said, you know what, we're going to have a go. Some of them, you can't really do much. I mean, that try to kick off the second half was just like, how do you respond to that? That's just a bounce and then an unlucky.
It's like a shin.
Ball off the hand into, it's just, however, Tabasad's second try was just the 110-meter one. That's try of the year. That's phenomenal.
Better than last week's?
Yes. I would argue yes. I would argue it's better. I'm sorry, they're behind the goal line. At least Tom was in front. But I'd also argue that it's more of a sheer individual brilliance moment. The other one was a bit more of a team try. He literally just kicked ahead, chased like no hell, stopped him, and then managed to just like wrestle the ball. I think it was away from Tom Wright, and showed him up. I thought that try was phenomenal.
Classic Nick. All about the individual glory.
You know how it is. This is how it rolls with this podcast. I've always been an individual.
Yeah, I go for the team tries, the team play, But yes, it's got to be one of the tries of the year, 100%.
Yeah, I think that some of the defensive lapses that the Wallabies have made, won't fly against, a Springboks, even an Argentina necessarily. Yep. I think that there are too many. Laurie has got his work cut out. The Lord has got his work cut out to really work on the defensive side of things. But attack, I think, is coming along brilliantly. And I think actual defense sort of like the particular positions, I think, have come along really well. But let's not ignore it any longer. 10. What do we do here? I think I don't know if it comes from a place of genuine a lack of confidence, but it is becoming increasingly clear to me. And we had a whole conversation about this which you don't know about this afternoon in our chat, where we talked about who the hell, which 10 do we pick for this? Because, I mean, Dono and Noah have performed brilliantly at Super Rugby level. I mean, they've got a good pack behind them. There's a settled structure and system in place. They did well. And yet when it comes to performing at Wallaby level, the feeling I get from them is they are nervous. They don't want to fuck this up, and it shows because
100%.
There is a significant lack of confidence at 10 specifically for all of those players at 10. And we were trying to talk about this beforehand, but before I throw this to you, and I think this has stemmed from the last couple of years of us chopping and changing that position so many times to the point where the confidence of all of those players to perform in gold is fucked, which effectively means that every single player, how many tens have we burned through in the last few years? Like at least 5 or 6 good tens, legitimately good tens, like who clearly have the athletic ability to perform well. And the amount of pressure that we have put on them, and if they make one mistake, boom, they're gone. Like that sort of discussion is everywhere in Australian rugby. And I think it's the amount of pressure that we put on this particular position, we don't just let them do it. And now I see everyone saying, go to Tom Liner, throw to Tom Liner, because he's the only one who has not been, he's only had one test match under his name, but I don't want this whole process to fuck him up as well. And then suddenly everyone goes, nah, he made one mistake, he missed a kick, blah, blah, blah. Let's go find Quade Cooper or Bernard Foley or an older player. And what does that do to his confidence? What do we do here, Nathan?
I mean, you're bang on. This is all a confidence thing. Like, and Joe Schmidt basically admitted it after the game. Like, there's just, we're currently in a situation where the sort of whoever is 10 becomes the lightning rod when there is a defeat or a poor performance. And yes, obvious stuff like missing touch and all that kind of stuffs you up, and it makes you very obvious when you do have that bad game. I think it just comes with a lot of the time, we talk about the prestige of that gold number 7 jersey. That 10 jersey's up there as well. When you look at the names that have come through, Liner is one of them. Those names have come through. Far Jones, Larkham, Foley, Cooper, all people that have, carried that 10 jersey and made it, one of the most prestigious ones in Australian rugby. So I think what needs to happen now is, and this was a change of, giving another guy a try and hodgepodging that 10 jersey around. For this Rugby Championship, with six games, whoever starts, if they are not injured, they go all 6. You just go, you know what? Say to them, we're going to back you 100%. If you have 6 bad games, you have 6 bad games.
Yeah.
I think a man has to be Noah. I think
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I think you look at Ben Donaldson's career, unfortunately, like even on debut, had a kick to sort of win it, misses it against Italy. There's been a couple other games where the confidence just has not been there. He hasn't had the opportunity to build confidence, and he hasn't. So as soon as you have that first moment, like when he tried to clear his line, it just sort of wobbles and shanks off his boot. You then start having those thoughts of, what am I doing? Is this happening again? Like, it's no coincidence the game he played against Georgia, incredibly, was at fullback, where he had a bit less responsibility, could build into a game. So I think he, as a finisher, I think he can do the job, but ultimately to start, it's got to be Noah against South Africa, against Argentina, against New Zealand. Just give the boy half a dozen games and let him work.
So do you reckon so going back, kind of maybe there needs to be, I think, so do you reckon as a way going forward, because there are a lot of good quality fly halves in there who don't have, who either are short on confidence or short on proper game time and experience, coming up with a clear identification for each of them for the remainder of the year? Because realistically speaking, the end goal is this Lions series that they're trying to win. I myself personally, as much as everyone is saying throw Tom Liner in there now, I think Tom Liner is you have to think about him for 2027. I think that is his best option, because I think he needs another year at Super Rugby level. This is not a knock on him. I think he just needs a bit more. He needs to get a bit bigger. He needs to get a bit bigger. And also, I think we need to play our cards right with his confidence. I think I do not want to throw another good quality rugby player into the rugby arena and they are not ready, because we have seen it happen so many times and it hasn't worked. I think have him in the squad, even have him as a reserve on the bench or, whatever. I agree that we start Noah. I think Noah has to, because he's the player in Australia that's played the most. And additionally, he has shown success at Wallaby goal level. People may disagree and knock down that France series win. I respectively disagree. I thought that was a very strong French side, even missing a couple of players. But you take on any sort of French side at that time and you win, you're doing pretty well for yourself. And that was him who did that. That was him who did that. And he was also a key orchestrated part of that. I think we need to identify for all of those players where they sit. I think Dono is a very handy utility coming off the bench, whether it be at fly half or at fullback. I think that naturally suits him a little bit more. Ditto Liner. I think you should definitely keep Liner in that setting, and in that environment. Even God, who's another option that I'm missing? I feel like I'm missing a.
Tane Edmonds signed with the NPC club North Harbour to get a bit of experience. That's the right.
That's a great option. Yeah,
like
Tane
on
Edmonds.
the Tom Liner stuff, it's a risk we just don't need to take. Like it's a high risk, low reward. You know, he could be great. He could be great straight away, but there's probably more chance that as a 21-year-old, he flames out. And you don't want to take it when it's unnecessary.
I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm done with that crap. Yeah, if you're going to bring it,
we don't need it.
Exactly. Like maybe for this, 2025 until the end of 2025, even after the Lions series, say to particular 10s who have chosen to stick around, I'd probably say like in Noah, Dono, if Tane Edmonds finds his way in, awesome, because I think he's also a great player, and we don't need his confidence burst as well because he's already had a shit season at the Waratahs. Tom Liner, I mean, if it is the situation that they decide to bring a Quade Cooper or a Bernard Foley in, just have him as what Kurtley Beale, for example, was there to be on. An experienced head who has been there before and can serve as a guiding head for them, who can come in as an emergency should an injury occur. Now, that is the best way forward because I don't want us to burn through players. We need to come up with a genuine strategy to progress this forward. I see Tom Liner running out as our number 10 in 2027.
Yeah, just
right
again. Give him a little bit of time, or if whoever else sort of wants to be. If it's like a Jack Bowen or McLaughlin Phillips coming through, you give them time as well. Like that's just got to be the theme of the next couple of years. It's not a position where we want to burn people. Like it's perfectly fine to give him moments off the bench, give him sort of that little taste and exposure. Maybe send him to Tonga when the Reds play Tonga on Friday. He gets a sort of a taste then, or as you said, sort of that A and Australia 15 program. Let him play there. Like let's take our time with this.
This leads on to another point, I think, as well, because I mean, maybe it's also just from the fact that we see a lot of people commenting, we see a lot of folks who interact on social media, and how harsh they are in terms of the way they look at particular set players. I mean, looking at the voting for player of the game on the Raw, Noah Lolesio has not achieved a single pass mark this year. Because and whether it be like due to any sort of voting, and the general consensus or a lot of chat out there just seems to be like, get him out, bring Liner in, get that person out, bring Liner in, bring Cooper in, and there's no set agreement, and it's just like bring this one person in and that will fix everything. We had a funny chat in terms of the actual rhetoric that we are seeing online around Nick Hartman took his partner and a friend out to the game on the weekend, and he had something so interesting to say to us, didn't he, Nate?
Yeah, I had a similar thing like my sister at the game as well. She said the exact same thing. Like we sort of go away going, all right, well, it was a win, but God, we didn't play well. We've got to be so much better against South Africa. Like we got to, as we said, we got to improve our D, our this, our discipline wasn't good enough. And all of them sort of walked away and got on with almost sort of thought of, wow, that was actually really fun. That was a good day out. And hey, they won. It was entertaining and exciting. Like a lot of my friends don't know Union, but could sort of tell when things were getting exciting. Like we all sort of got interested. And that was kind of a big sort of reality check of, because again, both of us, myself and Nick, live and breathe it. Like this is our job. Our job is to sort of talk rugby, and ultimately we sort of can probably find ourselves guilty of overanalyzing it, and probably same with the sort of other rugby sickos out there. So I think it's just an important point just to kind of reflect I've said a little bit of, we got to be better to beat South Africa. If you put that up against South Africa, you're beating by 20. Like we're 3-0. The only team in July to do this, or the only tier 1 team to do it in July. Yes, we can only play what's in front of us. we couldn't actually play better opponents. It's just how the sort of draw worked and everything in between. But be happy with what we have. Be happy that we've all of a sudden got a Wallabies side where we can go, hey, we're winning games. We've won more games this year so far than we did last year. Let's be happy for that.
Yeah, and that's not like, I don't think that's some people, cynical folks may look at that and go, oh yeah, but like that's just delaying the, sweep it us under and carpe diem when the Box come round. And I'm like, but no, it brings me back to an issue that I'm thinking that I'm having interacting with fans online. Because the vast majority of rugby fans, I think, they're either people who have played the game or they know people who have played the game. A rugby fan, is not traditionally speaking, is not as casual as, say, a league fan or a football fan. You can never have played a game of football in your life, but you can still fall head over heels in love with the Matildas, for example. And it's become increasingly apparent from just interactions that I've been having. I mean, my partner, she occasionally watches a rugby game with me, and when something amazing happens, she gets invested in it and enjoys it. And at the end of the match, when I've actually been like, oh no, we haven't played very well, or blah, blah, blah. But she was like, but you won.
Yeah.
But you won. Be happy about that. And similarly, when the Matildas, were challenged by, I don't know, Jamaica or something in, at a game up here in Newcastle. But she kind of went away from it saying, yeah, but they won. What a result. Be happy about that. Yeah.
We're just too. We are a little too cynical. Yeah, absolutely. What happens when you have a team full of Queenslanders as well? You got to glass shatters. Bring the man in.
And on cue, here comes Andy, who turns up late.
Gentlemen,
once again. How much did you catch of that?
I caught enough of that. Just caught the end there.
That was by design. I could see him in the waiting room.
That's right.
See him in the waiting room. Yeah, we're just interacting and having a conversation around how, Nick Hartman.
We're all cynical pricks, basically.
About basically how us as rugby fans have become maybe a little bit too cynical, and that a lot of the casual people who just went along to the game on the weekend, for example, had the best time. Even though it was a close match against Georgia, and a lot of us went away going, "Oh God, how are we going to go against South Africa?" Nick's partner, she said that she had the best time ever. The friend that Nick Hartman brought with him said that he had a wonderful time. Are we too cynical?
Yes. In fairness, it was a great game on Saturday. Like, for a casual observer, without looking through the what's the opposite of like rose-colored glasses? Anyway, so we're sort of looking at the Wallabies through that. If you just sat back and watched the game, there's end to end. There was collisions. I think only 4 scrums in the whole match. The fewest number of scrums in a Test match like ever since records began. So great advertisement for sort of afternoon rugby. Like, it wasn't wet, it wasn't slippery, it wasn't cold. Well, it might have been cold, but
it was a little cold.
It was a little cold. All right. But yeah, for the casual observer, great game. And you could say, oh, Australia should have put them away. But I mean, the Georgia scored a couple of just unbelievable tries. That one where they went like 105 meters, like that could happen to anybody. Any team could pull that out. Any of those kind of teams could pull that out against just about anybody. That was just some 15 seconds of sheer madness. But no.
Fun.
But fun. Don't be cynical, boys. Just enjoy the product that was on. I think they would have captured a lot of hearts and minds with that. Maybe not hearts and minds, but
it probably is a good reminder if you are too cynical or feeling like rugby is getting you down a little bit. Maybe I kind of have found refocusing my engagement on the Wallabies and recognizing that this is a journey, and that it's not 1999 anymore. It's not 1991 anymore. We are in a different time, in a different place. We are on a different journey now. And if you try to go back to those times, and you're going to try and replicate it, you're going to fall, fail, and die trying. We live in different times, and it's a different journey. And just releasing all of that baggage has honestly been one of the most liberating things for me as a fan, personally. And even though as we've alluded to, we kind of have fallen back into that. We fall back into that occasionally because we always are thinking about all the other nooks and crannies of rugby. Maybe there is a question that needs to be asked for a lot of hardcore Aussie rugby fans who look at this game and maybe are viewing it and need to re-engage with it in a different way. Maybe it's just us. Who knows?
It's one of those ones.
Right,
We're just cynical pricks. That's all we are.
It's true. We are.
No, we've just been burnt too many times. I think that's what it is. At least that's what my psychiatrist says. We've copped too many, like, really just. It's been a rough couple of years, so we always start thinking of, well, we can't just enjoy the sort of good moments in front of us. There's always going to be something that sort of grounds us and sort of levels us. And again, comment sections help that as well, because it's full of Kiwis and South Africans being like, yeah, well, when you do that against us, you're going to get beat. Oh, yeah? Well, when's the last time you had a better save? It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I care. My team's winning, and I'm going to enjoy it. Sue me.
Speaking of, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, Andy.
Oh, I was just going to say, so being that, the South Africans and Kiwis tend to say, oh, yeah, but when was the last time you won this or won that? So I assume they're not celebrating their wins on the weekend over lower-ranked opposition either. Like, or we should get over onto their pages. And
yeah, we should. Let's
all you only beat Portugal. How come you didn't beat somebody better than Portugal on the weekend?
Yeah. I mean, beaten by 50. That's embarrassing.
Oh, God. I'd hate to be you.
Yeah.
Speaking of fun experiences, though, now that we've got the token Queenslander in, tell us about this amazing match that played out the night before at Suncorp Stadium. You were there, weren't you, for the
Friday night football
Queensland Reds game? How good was it? It was
71 points. Just running rugby, daring rugby at times. Queensland didn't take a single penalty shot. Kick for the corner, kick for territory. They were there to play. And if the touchy on the eastern side knew what he was doing, Queensland would have been awarded a penalty in those last couple of phases, which was you'd expect O'Connor to bang it over from there. He kicked everything else throughout the night. The scrum and line out, and at the end we were disappointed, of course, because we'd lost this eminently winnable match a couple of key moments late. But then we sort of went, that was basically Queensland's second 15 beating a tier 1 test touring side. Like, that's pretty good. And we played a few guys out of position too. There seemed to be a little bit of a disconnect in the back line with Dre in his first match, and then the Junkyard Dog playing it outside centre instead of on the wing. I think that might have been a misstep. He didn't seem to be given the space and the chaos that he seems to thrive on. And there was a few times that the crossfield kick where Wales score in the right hand corner as they were running toward it,
wasn't it? Rare Dyer?
Yeah, I think it was. Mac Greeley, they had to range across to the right wing to defend there because they were found short. And then so he was basically trying to defend the right wing at one phase and then get back to his left wing to defend the next phase. There was just that little bit of that disconnect between Aubrey, the Junkyard Dog out on that side there. Just that seemed to be the sort of key part where it fell apart a little bit for the Reds. But a 1-point loss to a tier 1 test nation, just in front of 23,500 people, and enthusiastic and vocal people, I will say. It was otherwise a really great night.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Everything from start to finish. It didn't feel like a loss, which I know is actually a comment that has already been related to a particular other Queenslander in another competition earlier late on Wednesday last week. But It genuinely didn't. It was one of those situations where, to use a cliche, rugby was the winner.
And
just
fans on the field.
Yes.
That's great. Awesome.
I love that. Like I do get out. Don't shoot me. I do get out to the lines a bit, and I love getting on the field after the game for a kick. And to be able to do that at Suncorp, the hallowed turf, I was on my knees on the try line, like this is my Graceland, tears streaming down the face. And a lot of the players stuck around and came over and talked to us and signed autographs and stuff like that. Like it was just neat. It was just great. I was like, this is what rugby should be like. Just end to end, frenetic, high scoring, technically very good. Lots of the line out worked well, the scrums went well, and then just engaging with the fans after the game. It was wonderful.
Just going to say, on that Reds game, I think I worked out at the end of the day, there was 18 players that were missing from that team, who were either injured, in test duty with the 20s. Like, people have said, oh, yeah, well, that wasn't the full-strength Wales side. There was not 18 players missing from that Wales side. And if we're really going to be comparing what side was stronger between a test side and a club side, you're already losing the argument. Like, but I think, it just shows how smart sort of the Queensland Reds have been in just setting this up as well. Like, they're going to Tonga in the next sort of day or two to play them, both men and women's. They'll then play a game in Japan. I think they go to Bristol at some point in 25, along with another club that's escaping my head at this stage. Ulster, yep. That's it. That's the one. So also you're just exposing these guys to a bit more football, a bit more, guy like Dre, who I think is 18 or 19, I believe would be eligible for Junior Wallabies next year, or Australia 20s, whatever you want to call it. So instantly you've got someone in there who's now had a taste of international football, what it's like. A player like Richie Asiata, who has been stuck behind Fezler and Nasser this entire time, comes away as a hero with a hat trick. Like Ryan Smith, all of a sudden, bolsters his chance of getting back in the Wallabies setup with a great set piece performance. Like, there's just so many things to like about it. Like, just if in a loss, like it's rarely sort of come away happy with the loss, but you kind of just wish that they were able to just close out the last 90 seconds. But all in all, it's still an absolutely wonderful sort of Friday night.
I will. The one final lesson that I got from this, two key ones was, fuck me, Les's Kiss has got a good looking side in 2025. Jesus Christ, those new additions from Melbourne were phenomenal. I thought Matt Gibbon had a really good game. I thought Lockie Anderson offered a lot of exciting potential out on the wing as the first kind of couple, which looked really, really good. Josh Canham played, didn't he? I'm not going mad, am I? He did.
He played. He was probably a little quieter than I was expecting, just watching his highlights packages. I probably don't appreciate the sort of dirty work. But yeah, Matt Gibbon came on, and I think he force 2 turnover penalties, or forced a penalty and got a turnover as well. And I think that was another thing the Reds were missing. They were missing. Any team that doesn't have Fraser McReight in it is going to miss Fraser McReight. Like he is just a freak. I mean, the backline, the backline was amazing. They had some really good interplay, like McReight and Wilson and people like that have when they're playing together. But just that ability at the breakdown, just that one guy that can turn up with the ball was a little bit missing. And it might have been like it was 1 point. We're talking 1 point we were chasing. Could have been the difference.
Yeah. Well, what could have been. And then the other thing is, I said it on Twitter, and I know that the Reds are not alone in this, because the Western Force have got their own tour series coming up in South Africa, where they're playing, I think, Cheetahs, Western
They're all
Province.
cheaters over, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, but I see what you did there. And an emerging island side as well, which is really cool. But if we can't have an NRC, I will happily take tours like this. Everyone needs to get on what the Queensland Reds are doing. These tour games are amazing, and would add so much more vital experience for those upcoming Super Rugby seasons, to have at least a good 5 to 6 games extra under your belt from the off season, because I mean, Super Rugby Pacific is not a long season by World Rugby standards. It's a sprint. That's what makes it one of the things that makes it so difficult. And for the rest of the season, those club players and stuff are still together. They need to have time in the saddle. And it's another example of making your Super Rugby side run more efficiently. More tour games. This is fun. Like, these are really, really fun. We want to see a lot more of these. Brumbies, Tars, get on it. But I mean, probably not for the Tars, because realistically speaking, they're literally rebuilding from ground zero right now. So, with
just
They'll still got to get 15 blokes on the field.
Yes, exactly. So who knows? I know that it's part of the rumor mill about whether Taniela Tupou is going to go to Sydney or not. But I actually, on your behalf, Andy, am going to feel so triggered if Taniela Tupou runs out in a sky blue jersey. That feels wrong to me.
I don't know what I would do.
I don't know. Neither would I. And I don't even know where to begin with that one.
I'll enjoy the tears. that thought of Taniela, Angus Bell, Dave Brecky in one front row, Isaac Kalia to come on as well. You know, maybe even Sam Calakai with Mahe Vailanu. Just perfect. It's just great. And you know what? Us Waratahs have done it hard. But, you know, we need some nice things to go our way. So, you know.
No, you don't.
We'll take Taniela off your hands. Don't worry.
No, you don't.
Speaking of the Waratahs,
have enough front rows. Yes.
Actually, speaking of the Waratahs, I don't know if anybody saw this or if you boys had mentioned this earlier. Dialed in late, of course. That I think Saturday's test side for Australia was the first time in 125 years of the Wallabies there wasn't a single Waratah in the matchday squad for the Wallabies. Or it might have been the starting 15. There weren't any Waratahs on the bench, were there?
No, there's 10 New South Wales bred players, but
but
you guys just happen to take and just call your own. But yes, there was no official Waratahs from this year in the squad.
Yeah.
What about 25? There will definitely be a couple of those guys in the Waratah squad. I'll tell you that for a fact.
It was just an interesting thing that popped up. I was like, oh, that's an interesting stat.
And also a sober reflection of how far New South Wales still has to climb.
Enjoy it while you can. That's all I'll say.
Well, let's close out the podcast by talking about the other matches of the weekend. And of course, we start with earlier this week, we had a whole bunch, as we've kind of been alluding to all podcast, a lot of T2 or emerging nations playing, the top nations. Tonga played against Spain in Nuku'alofa, and Spain got their first ever win over any Pacific Island nation ever, with a 29-20 win at over Tonga in Nuku'alofa, which is a phenomenal result for the Spaniards. That's a fun little piece of history and a fantastic result for their growing rugby program. Of course, Queensland Reds went down 35 to Wales 36. My God, what a match. Go watch the highlights on Stan Sport or watch the full match. The whole thing was amazing. The fans and the crowds were into it. More of that. It was a shot in the arm if you are any sort of rugby fan. New Zealand 47-5 beating Fiji in San Diego. Fun facts, which was Beauden Barrett played his 126th match, surpassing Aaron Smith to become the most capped All Black, or the most capped back in All Blacks history, which is a really cool statistic and well deserving of Beauden Barrett. Of course, we had Australia playing Georgia 40-29. We alluded to it a couple of times in this podcast, but South Africa dispatching Os Lobos, Portugal 64-21 at Free State Stadium in Bloemfontein. Really good game, honestly, even though despite the scoreline, and seeing Portugal score that first try is going to live long in the memory in my head. Uruguay, unfortunately, this game did not live long in the minds of memory. Were absolutely demolished by Argentina, 79-5 in Uruguay. Unfortunately, it was a big loss to them. Chile lost as well, 11-52 to Scotland in Santiago. And then bringing it up the rear, a match that I'm really personally excited about, and I'm going to talk a little bit about in this closing stages. Japan going down 14-42 to Italy. Third loss on the trot for Eddie Jones. And
Look at
the
Nate.
first
Nate's getting silly over this. Look at you.
first time,
little bit of Schadenfreude.
first time since
Schadenfreude.
2016. Schadenfreude, yeah. First time since 2016 that Japan has lost all of their mid-game matches, which not a fun stat, but what a credit to Italy. My God, they're looking good. We'll throw the same question out as always. We'll start with you, Andy. What was your other highlight outside of Australian shores this weekend?
I'm going to echo what you said before. Portugal scoring that first try against South Africa in South Africa. And you just for that moment, just in that moment, just went, could we be on the cusp of something here? And then, of course, it gets shut down. But I mean, it just, and what an experience for those players too, to just be in that packed stadium against the reigning world champions, getting to play just in that arena. And for that, the guy who scored the try, whose name escapes me. But then also, and I'm not just going to copy everything you say because you were bad-mouthing Queensland before, and I will not stand for any more of that. The Italy-Japan match. Italy were good, man. They were good. Like they turned up, and Japan's one of those teams where it's like they've got so much potential, and they've done some amazing things in the last couple of years, or the last sort of couple of World Cup cycles, and yeah, Italy just showed up and just put some stuff together. And that kicker for Italy, who kicks for them?
Paolo Garbazzi.
Garbazzi, yeah, just 55 meters out on the angle, just casually, just strolls in and just launches it. And some of their interplay, some of the linking to when somebody bends the line or gets through the line, and then just 3 or 4 passes and they're 60 meters down the field was just, it was good to watch.
I will quickly shout out that outside of Australian shores, that was my match of the weekend. Seeing that, I am not gonna lie. Italy look a really improved side under Gonzalo Quesada. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Really good coach. 2 wins in the Six Nations and a draw. From that, yes, they had that one loss. I think it was to Samoa earlier, but the rest of this tour has been fantastic for them. He's got like a 50% winning record. He's pulled off a big win over Japan.
Who's the guy? His dad played for the Reds. That plays for Italy. Bit of another Reds connection there, Lewis Liner. That's just the key. Just get Reds
Queensland.
or Reds associated people into your team.
If only the Fijians are playing, and then you could talk about Penny Rabi again.
They did get the win the other week.
They did get the win. It's true. But I'm not going to lie. Capuzzo, fuck me. He's great. Phenomenal. No Queensland connection there. It's just pure talent.
Went to holiday. He holidayed in Queensland once, and that's enough.
Oh, yeah. He holidayed in Queensland once, so therefore it's okay.
Yeah.
But, he is phenomenal. Some of his try in the 8th minute, just cutting Japanese up, was just one of the best tries of the year, in my opinion. Such a great performance. Nathan, what was your standout?
I'll just 1 point before I get to my standout. I think the Italians got Argentina and New Zealand in a sort of what they call their autumn internationals, and don't be surprised if they take down one of those big scalps because, as you said, you look at even their losses. They're real quality performances. Like they took down Scotland. The draw was with France, which is one of the best teams in the world. Like they're a serious team. They're a serious threat. But I'm going to go with that game in USA. New Zealand looks very good against Fiji. And I'm kind of excited to see how they're going about their own rebuild under Scott Robinson. So saw a whole bunch of new faces come on towards the end. I thought Proctor in the centers was great. Like he looks like a real sort of great find, and not a great find, but someone who may have just been sort of not looked at in the past as they go for more established people like your Rieko Ioanis and Linnett Browns. But he was one of their best in the day as they sort of put Fiji to the sword. You then have someone like George Bell come off the bench, score a great try. I think it was a try where I think if not all the debutants, but like 5 out of the 7 debutants or however many they had, all had sort of a part to play in it. So it was a nice little moment there. So I think, just that game, a bit of sort of twilight football in the US where you have a full crowd, a Fijian side that was also willing to throw the ball around. Yeah, I reckon that was a really nice sort of moment, really nice game to watch before that Wallabies Georgia game that we've mentioned before.
It was a good match, and I think that even though the scoreline suggested otherwise, 47-5, I think there was a lot of positives that you can take out of that match if you are Fiji. And the actual physical contest, was a lot closer. There was some great moments of brilliant classic Fijian flair in there, and the try that they scored a peach. It was just an absolute peach. It was a really, really good game, and to see 30,000. Upwards of 30,000 in San Diego turn out. That's a great result for rugby fans to turn out in San Diego for a really entertaining afternoon of rugby. Right problem to have in the world. It's exciting to see. We look ahead to the upcoming weekend. Of course, as alluded to a little bit earlier in our glowing endorsement of the Queensland Reds, they will be heading over to play Tonga in a couple of days' time in Nuku'alofa at the National Stadium there. Uruguay will be taking on Scotland in Montevideo as one of the final matches. There are a couple of other games in there as well. I think Brazil is also going to be playing Belgium in the lower grades as kind of one of the closing matches as well of the final weekend. And then just like that, the mid-year internationals are done, which is kind of nuts to us. It's gone by quickly, but it has been a hell of a lot of fun, hasn't it, Nate?
Absolutely. And again, rugby doesn't end. Sevens is going on. Pod
Yes.
just dropped as well. So if you want to if you haven't been paying that much attention to the sevens, you're craving that Olympic action, so give it a listen and, get behind the 2 Australian sides, which are, as we sort of go into sort of reasons in the pod, why they're genuine, like medal, if not gold medal chances.
Exactly. Yes, be sure to check out that pod, the road to Olympic glory, which Nathan did with his Rugby Pass compatriot, Finn Morton. Really good podcast, highly recommended. So good, in fact, that Nathan's voice quality improved dramatically in his 125th episode. It was all just so when you could take over the hosting duties in the end. That was all. It's the long-term takeover now begins. But it's a good episode. Definitely have a listen to it if you want to get up to date with all things sevens. We will have one more episode for you coming this week. We won't give away any details at the moment, but Mr. Nick Hartman has got a podcast that has been on the back burner for a little while around the discussion of rugby administration and how to put it together. He's obsessed with that sort of stuff, like he is with moving the Chiefs to Western Sydney and calling them the Western Sydney Chefs. And we'll keep an eye out for that one. It's a running gag, Andy. It's been going for God knows how long. That particular one. Never hear the end of it. But after that, we'll probably take next week off before diving headlong into preparations for the Rugby Championship. It's going to be super exciting. But that brings this podcast to a close. Is there anything else I need to mention, Nathan? I haven't forgotten anything, have I?
I think that's it. And hopefully by the time we're back, either next week or the week after, we're talking about a couple of medals and a new Wallabies squad. So
plenty to discuss. Andy, I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope you keep going out to the nest and showing support out there. I hope we'll see you out in Clubland. And I hope. What do you think their thoughts are in Tonga?
I think they should be worried about what the Reds might be able to turn up and do. I don't know if the Reds, I assume, aren't getting their sort of test players back for this. I haven't actually seen a touring party announced, but after what the Reds put together last weekend, especially with a lot of those Rebels guys that had been signed, they were announced Wednesday or Thursday, and then they show up Friday night and get their first cap, and were good. Like Canham and Gibb in particular, he was good. Yeah. I mean, Tonga will be hurting after losing to Spain, but that Queensland team it is just looking good. I am hopeful for next year, but wary.
Hopeful but wary. It's the eternal truth. But yeah, it is looking very exciting if you are a Queensland fan. Just everything they're doing right now. Things loom and bode well for 2025. But that is another episode of the Drop Kickoff for this week. My name is Nick Wasiliev. You know who I am. You know who Nathan is. You know who Andy is. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, give us a review. We're working hard here. We do this as our daily job. It's tough. Give us some love. Drop a podcast. Let us know that we're freaking amazing. Lol. And to all of you listening, thank you so much for enjoying our podcast, for listening. And we'll catch you the next time round.